Is it? Look at your phone. Check social media. This meteor shower is happening simultaneously over 12 major cities worldwide. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. What are the odds of that being a coincidence? Taiho frantically checked his phone. News alerts were starting to pop up. Amateur astronomers were posting videos from around the world. The meteor shower was indeed happening globally. Exactly as she'd predicted. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Maya Williams. I used to work for NASA until I started asking inconvenient questions about unusual orbital patterns. They called me paranoid and fired me, but I kept watching, kept tracking, kept recording. When official channels failed, I went underground. The meteor shower continued for exactly 7 minutes, then stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Maya's equipment fell silent once again, but she continued typing notes into her computer. "This was just the beginning," she said. "They're getting bolder. The intervals between reconnaissance missions are getting shorter. Soon they won't need to hide behind the cover of fake meteor showers. What do they want? What does any advanced civilization want when they find a primitive world? Resources, territory. Maybe they're just curious. Maybe they're planning an invasion. I don't know yet, but I intend to find out." Taiho sank down onto a park bench, his mind reeling. Everything he thought he knew about reality had just been shattered in 10 minutes. "Scouts for what?" Taiho's voice cracked as he watched Maya carefully disconnect her equipment. His hands were shaking, and sweat ran down his face despite the cool night air. Maya wrapped each device in protective cloth before placing it in her bags. "My name is Dr. Maya Williams. Former NASA astrophysicist specializing in extraterrestrial reconnaissance patterns. I was fired 18 months ago for refusing to suppress my findings." "What findings?" Taiho moved closer, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Mai looked up at the sky where the meteor shower had just ended. An alien fleet has been studying Earth for 6 months. "Those weren't meteors you just saw, Mr. Kim. They were surveillance. Drones, mapping our defenses, our population centers, our technological capabilities. I've been monitoring their deployment patterns, trying to predict their next move. That's..." Taiho started to laugh, but the sound came out bitter and forced. "You expect me to believe that homeless woman living in a park has discovered alien invaders that NASA missed? NASA didn't miss them. They chose to ignore them." Maya's voice grew hard. "When I presented my evidence to the director, he told me to bury the research, said it would cause worldwide panic. When I refused, they destroyed my career, blacklisted me from every scientific institution, and made sure no one would hire me." She pulled out a thick folder from her bag. Pages covered with calculations, star charts, and photographs. "Look at this data. The orbital patterns are too perfect to be natural. The timing is too precise. These objects appear exactly when our defense satellites are in blind spots." Taiho took the folder with trembling hands. Even though he wasn't a scientist, he could see the meticulous work, charts tracking objects across months, calculations predicting their appearances, photographs showing unusual light patterns in space. "I've been living on the streets for 8 months. Mai continued, using modified equipment I built myself. Every night, I track their movements, record their patterns, document their behavior. They're getting more aggressive. The reconnaissance missions are happening more frequently. Why Seoul? Why watch from this park? Because this city is a target. Look at the pattern." She pointed to a chart showing red dots scattered across a world map. "Every major technological center, every military installation, every population. Hub over 5 million people. They're preparing for something big. Taiho studied the map. Seoul was marked with multiple red dots, more than almost any other city. What are they preparing for? That's what I've been trying to figure out. But based on historical patterns from other civilizations, Maya's voice trailed off. What other civilizations? The signals I've been detecting aren't just from one species. There are at least 3 different technologies in those drones, 3 different alien races working together. That's never happened before in recorded history. Before Taiho could respond, the sound of engines filled the air. Black SUVs appeared from multiple directions, their headlights cutting through the darkness. The vehicles moved with military precision, surrounding the park in seconds. Dr. Williams, a voice called out through a megaphone. Please remain calm. We need to speak with you. Maya stood slowly, her hands visible. It's starting, isn't it? They're making contact. Men in dark suits emerged from the vehicles, their faces grim and professional. The leader approached carefully, his hand resting on his weapon, but not drawing it. Dr. Maya Williams, that's me, Agent Park, Korean National Intelligence Service. The President wants to see you. Now. Maya nodded as if she'd been expecting this moment. How long ago did they make contact? Agent Park's expression didn't change. But Taiho saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear. 3 hours ago, multiple ships appeared in orbit around Earth. They're not responding to any communication attempts, except they asked for me. Didn't they? How did you know? My shouldered equipment bags, because I've been the only one actually paying attention, while your government was pretending this wasn't happening. I was learning their language, their protocols, their culture. Another agent stepped forward. Dr. Williams, we need to verify your identity and your claims. This is a matter of national security. Global security. Maya corrected. And you can verify everything in my research files. I've been sending reports to 12 different governments for months. Most ended up in classified files that no one wanted to read. Taiho watched in amazement as this woman he dismissed as a homeless vagrant took control of the situation. The agents treated her with respect, even deference. Everything she'd told him was true. What about him? Agent Park nodded toward Taiho. He's coming with me, Maya said firmly. He's the only civilian who's witnessed their reconnaissance patterns firsthand. His testimony could be valuable. Dr. Williams, with respect, this is above his clearance level. Agent Park. In about 6 hours, clearance levels won't matter anymore. Either we handle this properly, or we're all going to have much bigger problems. As they escorted Maya toward the vehicles, she turned back to Taiho. Still think I'm delusional? Taiho shook his head, unable to speak. His world had completely changed in the span of 30 minutes. The homeless woman he'd wanted removed from his view was about to save humanity. Get in the car. Mr. Kim, history is about to be made. The convoy of black SUVs raced through Seoul's empty streets at incredible speed. Taiho gripped his seat as they weaved between traffic. Sirens blaring and emergency lights flashing. Maya sat calmly beside him, her equipment, bags secured on her lap, as if high-speed government escorts were a normal part of her day. Where are we going? Taiho shouted over the noise. Underground command center. Agent Park replied from the front seat. Built during the Cold War. Upgraded for situations like this. Situations like what? First contact protocols, the vehicles disappeared into a tunnel that Taiho had never seen before. Despite living in Seoul his entire life, they descended deep underground, past multiple security checkpoints with heavily armed guards. The tunnel stretched for miles, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look like a science fiction movie. Finally, They arrived at a massive steel door marked with symbols in Korean, English, and Chinese. Armed soldiers scanned their identification while others ran security wands over Maya's equipment. The devices are clean. One soldier reported, highly advanced, but no weapons or explosives. Of course they're clean, Maya said. I built them to communicate, not to fight. The doors opened to reveal a command center that took Taiho's breath away. The room was enormous, filled with dozens of computer stations, communication equipment, and most impressively, a wall of monitors that stretched from floor to ceiling. Each screen showed a different view of the Earth from space. But what dominated every screen made Taiho's legs feel weak. Massive alien ships were descending from orbit, their hulls gleaming like polished metal in the sunlight. They were unlike anything he'd ever imagined. Not saucer-shaped like in movies, but long and elegant, with curved surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. My God, he whispered. 12 ships total. General Park announced as he approached them. Each one is over 2 kilometers long. They appeared simultaneously in orbit 3 hours ago. Then began their descent exactly when Dr. Williams predicted they would. Maya studied the screens intently. They're using the same approach patterns I documented. Look at the cities they're targeting. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Seoul, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Lagos, Sydney, Cairo, and Mexico City. The 12 most strategically important population centers on Earth. On the screens, world leaders appeared in video conferences, their faces pale with terror. The President of the United States looked like he hadn't slept in days. The Chinese premier was frantically giving orders to his military advisors. The British Prime Minister was shouting at someone off-camera. Dr. Williams predicted this. General Park announced to the room. She's been tracking their approach for months while living on the streets, warning any government that would listen. Most of you didn't listen, Maya said quietly, but her voice carried across the room. Suddenly, every screen in the command center flickered and went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Then the screens came back online. But instead of showing the ships, they displayed a single message in dozens of languages scrolling across every monitor. We seek the one called Maya Williams. She alone among your species demonstrated the wisdom to watch for our rival. The room fell completely silent. Every person in the command center turned to stare at Maya, who stood calmly despite her hands, trembling at her sides. Dr. Williams, General Park said, his voice barely above a whisper, they're asking for you specifically. Maya stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. I'm here. The screens changed again. Now they showed the interior of one of the alien ships. The beings standing before the camera were unlike anything from Earth's movies or imagination. They were tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Their faces were humanoid but refined, with large eyes that held ancient wisdom. Dr. Maya Williams, the alien, spoke, and somehow the words came through the speakers in perfect Korean, then repeated in English, Chinese, and dozens of other languages. Your dedication impressed us. While your leaders ignored the signs, you sacrificed comfort and credibility to serve as guardian of your species. Maya's voice remained calm despite the magnitude of the moment. I did what needed to be done. We have been testing your species for many cycles. We scattered clues across your skies, patterns that any advanced civilization should recognize. Most of your people dismissed these signs as natural phenomena. Your governments chose ignorance over truth. But you didn't. Maya said, correct. You alone maintained vigilance. You alone sought to understand rather than dismiss. You alone prepared For this moment, while others slept in comfort, Taiho watched in stunned silence as this homeless woman he had dismissed became humanity's most important ambassador. The aliens had been testing Earth, waiting for someone worthy of contact. While presidents and prime ministers had ignored the signs, Maya had been humanity's guardian. "We choose you as our primary contact," the alien continued. "Your species. Survival depends on wisdom, not weapons. You have proven that such wisdom exists among your people. What happens now?" Maya asked. "Now, Dr. Williams, you help us determine whether humanity deserves to join the galactic community, or whether Earth requires different management." The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Humanity's future rested in the hands of a woman who had slept in parks, while the powerful slept in luxury. The negotiations began immediately and lasted 3 grueling days. Maya worked round the clock in the underground command center, communicating with the alien ambassadors through advanced translation devices they provided. The technology was beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Holographic displays that showed 3-dimensional star maps, communication systems that could translate thoughts into any language, and energy sources that seemed to run on pure light. Taiho watched from the observation deck as Maya sat at a crystalline table that the aliens had somehow materialized in the center of the room. The alien ambassador, who called himself Zephyr, appeared as a shimmering hologram that looked more real than reality itself. His species, the Valorians, had been traveling the galaxy for thousands of years, searching for worlds ready to join their peaceful alliance. "Your species shows promise," Zephyr communicated, his words flowing like music through the translation system. "But you must learn to value wisdom over wealth, dedication over status. Too many of your leaders measure worth by possessions rather than actions." Maya nodded, her face drawn with exhaustion. She hadn't slept in 48 hours, surviving on nothing but coffee and determination. "What do you need to see from us? Proof that humanity can change. Your planet faces climate destruction, resource depletion, and endless conflicts. We offer technology that could solve these problems in decades rather than centuries, but only if your species proves worthy of trust." The alien showed holographic displays of their technology, machines that could clean oceans in months, energy systems that could power entire continents without pollution, medical devices that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia. But there was a catch. "We have seen too many species destroy themselves with advanced technology," Zephyr explained. "Power without wisdom leads to extinction. We need guarantees that humanity will use our gifts responsibly." Maya spent hours discussing Earth's history, its potential, and its failures. She spoke honestly about human nature, the capacity for both great good and terrible evil. She didn't try to hide humanity's flaws, but she argued passionately for its potential. "We're not perfect," she said during one particularly intense session, "but we're capable of growth. I've seen people change their entire worldview when presented with truth. Look at him." She pointed to Taiho watching from above. 3 days ago, he saw me as worthless. Now, he's learning what really matters. Taiho felt his face burn with shame and pride simultaneously. Maya was using him, an example of humanity's capacity for transformation. On the 3rd day, Maya finally secured a preliminary agreement. The aliens would share basic technologies with Earth, clean energy, advanced medicine, and environmental restoration tools. In return, humanity would have to prove its worth over the next 10 years by ending major conflicts, reducing environmental damage, and establishing a global government focused on cooperation rather than competition. "This is not a gift," Zephyr warned. "This is a test. Fail, and we will withdraw our support. Succeed, and Earth will join the Galactic Federation as a full member. Maya signed the agreement with a hand that shook from exhaustion the moment she finished. She collapsed onto the crystalline table, her body finally giving out after 3 days of the most important negotiations in human history. Maya, Taiho rushed down from the observation deck as medical teams surrounded her. They loaded her onto a stretcher. Her breathing shallow but steady, tears streamed down his face as he knelt beside her stretcher. The reality of what had just happened hit him like a physical blow. This woman had sacrificed everything: her career, her home, her health, her reputation, to protect a world that had rejected her. Her homelessness wasn't failure. It was heroism of the highest order. "I'm sorry," he whispered, taking her hand. "I didn't understand. I thought you were worthless. But you were the most valuable person on Earth." Maya opened her eyes and smiled weakly. "Now you do understand. That's what matters." As Maya recovered in the medical bay, Taiho made the most important decision of his life. He liquidated his entire fortune, his penthouse, his companies, his investments, and established the Maya Williams Foundation. The foundation's mission was simple: support dismissed scientists, overlooked researchers, and anyone whose important work was being ignored by the establishment. "We almost lost our chance at the stars because we didn't listen to the right person," he announced. At the Foundation's first press conference, never again, the aliens kept their word. Over the following months, Earth received technologies that began transforming the planet. Oceans started cleaning themselves. Deserts bloomed with new vegetation, and diseases that had killed millions were eradicated. But more importantly, humanity began to change. The knowledge that Earth was being watched and tested by advanced civilizations forced people to reconsider their priorities. Wars became harder to justify when everyone knew aliens were evaluating humanity's worthiness. Environmental destruction slowed as people realized their planet was their test score. Maya recovered and became Earth's first galactic ambassador, working with alien species to prepare humanity for eventual Federation membership. She never forgot her nights in the park, and she made sure that Earth's first interstellar embassy included a memorial to all the overlooked heroes who served humanity without recognition. Years later, when children asked about first contact, they learned about Dr. Maya Williams, the homeless hero who saved the world while the powerful ignored the signs. They learned that true worth wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in service to something greater than oneself. The aliens shared their technology with humanity. But they never forgot that Earth's salvation came from a woman who slept in parks, watching the stars while others slept in comfort. And in Seoul, the park where Maya once maintained her vigil became a monument to the power of dedication over privilege, wisdom over wealth, and hope over despair. The end. Kim Taiho sipped his expensive whiskey, staring down from his glass-walled penthouse at the city lights below. Seoul sparkled like diamonds, but one dark spot annoyed him every single night. The park across the street should have been empty and peaceful, but there she was again. The black woman appeared exactly at 11:47 p.m. Just like clockwork. She carried 2 large bags and what looked like metal equipment. Taiho had been watching her for 3 weeks now, and it drove him crazy. His penthouse cost him millions. And this homeless person was ruining his perfect view. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, grabbing his phone. Security. "Yes, it's Kim Taiho. That woman is back in the park. I want her removed immediately." "Sir, we've tried before. The park is public property. We can't just—" "I don't care about property lines. She's making my neighborhood look bad. My guests see her when they visit. It's embarrassing. We'll send someone to talk to her again, sir." Taiho watched through his floor-to-ceiling windows as the security guards approached the woman. She looked up calmly from whatever she was doing and reached into her bag. Even from 30 floors up, Taiho could see her pull out some kind of official papers. The guards examined them with flashlights, talked quietly among themselves, then walked away shaking their heads. "What the hell?" Taiho called security back. "Why didn't you remove her? Sir, she has some kind of permits. Government documents. We can't touch her." "Government documents? For what?" "Something about atmospheric monitoring. Look, Mr. Kim, she's not bothering anyone. She's just sitting there quietly." Taiho hung up angrily. Atmospheric monitoring? What kind of nonsense was that? He pressed his face against the cold glass, trying to see what she was actually doing. Down there, the woman had spread out a small tarp and was ranging strange-looking devices on it. They weren't normal camping gear. Some of them had blinking lights. Others looked like small satellite dishes. She moved with the precision of a surgeon, placing each piece in exact positions like she was following some invisible blueprint. Crazy. "Woman," he said aloud, but something bothered him. Her movements weren't random or sloppy like he'd expect from a homeless person. Everything she did looked deliberate, calculated, almost scientific. As the night wore on, Taiho found himself unable to look away. The woman pointed her devices toward different parts of the sky, adjusting them every few minutes. She had a notebook and was writing things down constantly, checking her watch and making notes. Whatever she was doing, it required serious concentration. When morning came, she packed everything up with the same careful precision. Every piece of equipment went back into her bags in a specific order. She folded her tarp, cleaned up any trace of her presence, and disappeared just as the sun rose over the city. The next night, she was back. Same time, same spot, same routine. Taiho cancelled his dinner plans just to watch her. This time he noticed something else. She had different equipment. Some devices were the same, but others were completely new. How was a homeless person getting access to this kind of technology? By the fourth night, Taiho's curiosity had turned into obsession. He set up his own chair by the window and watched her entire routine. She arrived at exactly 11:47 p.m. Never a minute early or late. She set up her equipment in the same methodical way. But tonight she spent most of her time focused on one particular section of the sky. "What are you looking at?" he whispered to himself. The woman suddenly stood up and adjusted one of her devices. She wrote something in her notebook urgently, then checked her watch. She looked worried about something. Taiho followed her gaze upward, but saw nothing except stars and the usual city light pollution. A week passed, then 2 weeks. Rain didn't stop her. Wind didn't stop her, even during a thunderstorm. She sat under a small umbrella, protecting her equipment and continuing her mysterious work. Taiho had never seen dedication like this from anyone, let alone someone living on the streets. His friends started noticing his distraction. "You're always staring out that window." His business partner Lee Minho complained during a meeting. "What's so interesting about an empty park?" "It's not empty," Taiho replied without thinking. "What?" "Nothing. Let's continue with the presentation." But Taiho couldn't concentrate on business anymore. Every day he found himself wondering what the woman was doing, what she was looking for, why she never missed a single night. Her equipment was getting more sophisticated. Sometimes she had laptop computers. Other times she used instruments that looked like they belonged in a science laboratory. The strangest part was how she seemed to be tracking something. She would point her devices at one part of the sky, wait, make notes, then move to another section, like she was following something invisible moving across the heavens. Something that only she could detect. After 3 weeks of watching from his penthouse window, Taiho couldn't take it anymore. His expensive whiskey tasted flat. His luxury furniture felt uncomfortable, and all he could think about was the mysterious woman in the park below. Tonight, he was going to get answers. He threw on his designer jacket and took the elevator down to street level. The cool night air hit his face as he crossed the empty road toward the park. His heart pounded with a mixture of anger and curiosity. This homeless woman had been disrupting his peace for weeks, and he was going to put an end to it. As he approached her setup, he could hear a strange humming sound. One of her devices was glowing with a soft blue light, and she was adjusting dials on what looked like a control panel. The equipment was far more sophisticated than anything he'd seen from his window above. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice sharp with authority. "What exactly do you think you're doing here?" The woman looked up slowly. In the dim light, he could see her face clearly for the first time. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe in her early 30s, with intelligent eyes that seemed to hold secrets. Her clothes were worn but clean, and despite living on the streets, she carried herself with quiet dignity. "I'm monitoring the approach," she said simply, then turned back to her device. Taiho felt his anger flare. "Approach of what? And don't give me some crazy story about atmospheric monitoring. I know you're just another homeless person causing trouble." She stood up, wiping her hands on a small towel. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Mr. Kim, how do you know my name? You're not exactly subtle about your complaints to security. Your voice carries from your penthouse window." Taiho's face reddened. "I don't care what you think you heard. I want you to pack up this junk and find somewhere else to sleep." The woman checked her watch, then looked up at the sky. "In 3 minutes, a meteor shower will begin from the northeast quadrant. Your weather services missed it. So did NASA, the Korean Space Agency, and every other official organization on Earth." Taiho pulled out his phone and checked multiple weather apps. No alerts, no astronomical events scheduled. "You're completely delusional. There's nothing happening tonight. Watch and learn," she said calmly. Making final adjustments to her equipment, the humming sound grew louder. Her devices started beeping in a rhythmic pattern, and small screens displayed streams of data that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Taiho wanted to laugh, but something about her confidence made him pause. 2 minutes, she announced, pointing toward the northeast sky. Taiho looked up, but saw nothing except the normal scatter of stars visible through Seoul's light pollution. "This is ridiculous. I'm calling the police." 1 minute, the woman's equipment suddenly went silent. All the lights stopped blinking, and the screens went dark. For a moment, everything was perfectly quiet. Then she pressed a button, and her devices came back to life with renewed intensity. "Now," she whispered. Taiho looked up just as the first streak of light blazed across the sky. Then another. Within seconds, dozens of bright trails were racing overhead, creating a spectacular light show that made the city's neon signs look dim by comparison. His jaw dropped. How is this possible?" The woman was busy recording everything, her fingers flying across keyboards and adjusting instruments. She moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. "I've been tracking their pattern for months. They're not random meteors, Mr. Kim. They're scouts. Scouts for what? Reconnaissance drones. They're mapping our cities, our military installations, our population centers. What you're seeing isn't a natural phenomenon. It's an organized survey. Mission." Taiho stared at her in disbelief. "You're talking about aliens. I'm talking about an intelligence that's been studying Earth for the past 6 months. They're methodical, patient. and incredibly advanced. Each of these meteors is collecting data and transmitting it back to their mothership. That's impossible.